Being able to float all of your belongings in a tub behind you sounds pretty convenient. I would like to be able to do that too. Not necessarily in the bathtub, but generally speaking, sounds pretty nice. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kat, and today I would like to talk about Conductors by Nicole Glover. The story is set in Philadelphia after the Civil War, and we follow Hetty and her husband Benjamin, who were conductors for the Underground Railroad and used to free slaves, who now work as detectives in the city. One of their friends gets murdered, and soon after other things seem out of place or go wrong, and it doesn't take long for another corpse to turn up. But now they have to investigate whether one of their friends is responsible. We see the whole story from Henrietta's perspective, and sometimes you get interludes, like flashbacks, but those are kept in chronological order, so she starts out with when she flees from slavery and when she meets Benjamin for the first time, and then further on when they work on cases together. But from time to time you get an interlude where she goes back in time to give you some background information. Hetty is a very interesting character. She's smart, resourceful, stubborn, but also petty, and she knows it because it's mostly in regard to one other character, and she knows she's petty about it, but she still feels the same way. Until a little further along when she reels that in a bit and reevaluates how she sees this other person. But yeah, she's a very interesting character to follow and never boring. The relationship between her and her husband Benjamin changes a bit throughout the story, and it's actually quite sweet to read. They live in a very tight-knit community in Philadelphia, and as such you get to meet quite a few characters, but all of them are distinct enough to stand on their own, and I don't think I ever confused any of them, except maybe for Penelope's cousins. All of their names end on Bell, like we have a Maybell, a Clarabelle, and I think there are more, but you only meet Maybell, so that's fine. I imagine we might see more of them in the second book, which is already out, which is very quick for traditional publishing, but we might get to see some other cousins in the second book, and I imagine they will be standing on their own then too, and you wouldn't confuse them. Just here when they talk about Penelope's cousins, sometimes I was like, which one is this again? But they don't play a big enough role to take you out of the story or can really confuse you. Benjamin is a good balance to Hetty. They share a lot of traits. Obviously they are both stubborn in their way, they're both smart and resourceful, but they balance each other out in other regards, and it's a really nice relationship to read. Finally, there's a couple who is doing things together even while they deal with their own feelings. This world is filled with magic, and that's a very interesting part about the world building. There are 3 magical systems, at least, at work. There is actual sorcery, which is done with wands, which is supposedly restricted to white people, so there are other people trying to learn it as well, but they have to do so in secret. There is celestial magic, which is what Hetty uses. You can either draw sigils like star signs, which you also see at the top of the chapters. You can either draw them into the air to make something happen and make a figure related to the sign appear, which will then be filled with like blue starlight, and sounds very pretty actually. So you can either draw those just in the air to make them appear, or you can put them on paper, or like Hetty does, you can sew them into clothing to make spells readily available. And then there's also brute magic, which is what Penelope partakes in, which takes a lot more patience, which is why you don't hear an awful lot about it from Hetty, because she doesn't feel like doing that. This leads me to one of the minor issues, I guess, I had with this book, because Hetty knows exactly what she's talking about. She's in this world, she is familiar with all of the magic. Sometimes when she talks about things, I think particularly in the flashbacks or interludes, she assumes that you know some things that I didn't know that were very clear to the character, but maybe less so to the reader. There were a couple of instances where I thought maybe a bit more of an explanation would have been nice, even though it makes sense for the character not to speak about it more extensively as they know what's happening. The plot itself is fast-paced and weaves many threads together. There's a whole lot going on in this book. And then when it comes together at the end, the reasoning the murderer gives you for what they actually wanted to achieve with all of the stuff that has been happening, it seemed too convoluted to me. Like, for what they wanted to achieve, this was just too elaborate. You could have gotten the same result, possibly more easily, and without so much chaos. Yeah, that's the one thing that really didn't work for me. I didn't buy the villain's motivation, really. They waited quite a long time to even come up with the plan and then execute it. And then I think it just had too many elements where things could have gone wrong and they would have never seen the result they wanted. But in the end it falls apart for them anyway, so you know. Overall, I quite enjoyed following Hetty while she's solving crimes. And I will read the next book as well. Like I said, it's already out, very fast for traditional publishing somehow. And I think overall it gets this cat. And I can only recommend it if you want to read a detective story with an interesting backdrop and a lot of magical elements. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to help this channel out. And let me know what you would do if you had magic available. Bye!